welcome to Janai Sampson Live, and we are live. I'm welcoming our very first interviewed guest, Alex.
Wow, that's
Alex,
amazing. The
yes,
first.
yes, the very first
Not too much to worry about
Waffle
here.
Bus owner,
Owner.
Antigonish resident. Man, thank you
Yeah.
for coming. How you doing, brother?
Thank you for having me, brother. It's a pleasure to be here. Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for trusting me with the very first inaugural show. It's amazing.
Of course, I wouldn't have had it any other way, man. I
Thanks,
wouldn't have
brother.
had it any
Thank you
other
so
way.
much.
How are you doing?
I'm all right. I am on my feet. I am appreciating it as it comes. Busy, but manageably busy. And busy of my own making. So far so good. I could say I'm tired, but I mean, I'm just this par for the course. I got 2 kids, 2.5 businesses, 2 dogs, a cat, a life. So it's a matter of staying ahead of the tiredness, if you will. So I'm doing well, doing well.
Of course,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, it's not easy.
It's not.
I can imagine running a business,
Yeah.
as I've heard, as
Yeah.
I'm starting to learn a little bit about. But tell me a little bit about yourself. Where do you come from, Alex?
So it's a long story. I've been here in Antigonish proper for about 20 years now, 22 years. I got here in 2002, so 21 years. And I came here because I met, obviously, someone from the area out west where I'm from originally, which is Vancouver Island, British Columbia. And we came out here at that time. I obviously fell in love with the way of life, the pace, the people, the community, the warmth and character of the people that I ran into, and the depth of personality that I came across. So I fell in love with it, and I was at that point pursuing my master's in education to teach. And so I finished my master's in Moncton, New Brunswick, and ended up coming back here to teach again. And I taught for almost 10 years here at a Canadian school that's just around the corner from here, Pomkit School. Our 2 of my boys go to school there now, presently. And so I did that for about almost 10 years. And I got to the end of almost my 10th year, and I was starting to have the classic burnout, if you will, right? Which is to say that I was being overworked, undervalued. I felt underappreciated by myself, by the administration, by society or the community at large. To a certain extent, I find teachers are quite undervalued, over relied on, and undervalued, if you will. And I was having qualms with a lot of the policies in place and the educative policies, the no zeros, for example, and no handing in homework, and what it was passing down to my students. And so I was feeling like I was starting to become a vehicle for things that I didn't really believe in, policies, ideologies even, if you will, that I didn't believe in. So at that point, I had just started in the summer times with my partner, Nicole, going to music festivals and working a food truck. So we had this idea to start selling waffle-based sweet and savory items. And so we loved music. It was part of our life. It was sort of a religious, if you will, thing that we did quite often for many, many years. And then we started doing this thing with the food truck, and that just took off, as you know. It started, and it was in 2014 where I just realized we went to a few festivals where it was, and this is no word of a lie, people have seen it, 30, 40 people deep, 12 hours a day, just selling, just running myself ragged to stay ahead of the madness, stay ahead of the curve. And I realized I got something here, I really do. And so, long story short, I sort of deliberated over it for about 6 to 8 months. Should I do it? Should I take this full time? Should I really invest of myself and my time and my effort? Or do I stay in this job that is secure, that has the pension, that has the stability? And so I deliberated, and I decided to take a year sabbatical in 2014. And here we are in 2023. And so I'm coming on my 10 years of having my food truck, our first restaurant in 2015, and now our second restaurant opened last year in New Glasgow in 2021. So I have been doing that primarily, if you will, and also raising 2 young boys who are, obviously the loves of my life, apart from my partner, and one of the greatest pleasures and joys that I've ever had. I thought I was ready to have children, but it was only in having the children and raising them that I learned that I was then ready to have the children. So I raised 2 young boys as well. And I have some hobbies and things that I do, that I enjoy doing, that I try to get to. I'm a musician. I was a musician for many years, played a lot of music. I was in quite a few bands and traveled quite a bit around the country back in the late 90s and early aughts. And I like to be outdoors. I live in the woods with my partner, so we spend a lot of time outdoors. We love animals. I do a lot of reading. I was a language arts teacher, so that's one of the passions that I've kind of kept with me over the years. And then finally, I have also a mindfulness-based meditation practice. So all those things wrapped up in a little bit of a sound bite, if you will, make up who I am and where I'm at right now.
Yeah, man. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a lot,
It's a lot to unpack, I know.
but no, it's like you're you're quite the guy.
Yeah.
And on top
Well,
of
thank
that, like, you find the time to come spend some time with me.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's interesting because one thing that I didn't realize for many years with my business, and this is sort of what pushed me into my meditation practice, was I was extremely overwhelmed. I was run off my feet. I had two small children. We had just bought our first house. We opened our first business. My partner was, had just had our second child, so she was out raising an infant, which is a more than full-time job. So I was very, very, very overwhelmed. I couldn't see the beauty of what I'd created,
right.
or, and this will speak directly to what we're doing right now, the connections that I was making
Yes.
through my business. So personal connections, friendships that I forged, pathways that I sort of navigated with people that I would never have met had I not started the business.
Yes.
And so that you are one instance for sure. I have a very, very close friend of mine who's in India right now, who's moved back to India, and I met him. If I hadn't started Waffles, I never would have met him, and he's become one of these late period of my life friends that I made in my 40s, right? So I'm 50 now. So it's I one of the things that mindfulness and meditation has brought me to realize and to be aware of and conscious of is all of the beautiful things that the job has brought me, while also being taxing, while also being overwhelming, while also being tiring, honestly. But so, and that brings us to here
Yeah.
and now, right? So it's overwhelming. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it in a way that I can say I'm not just deluding myself and saying this, and I'm not just saying it's worth it like this, like,
Of course.
financially, because I'm not a millionaire by any means. I don't want to be a millionaire, but we make enough money to support ourselves, and support our family, and to live, in a way that is humble,
Yes.
but
Yes.
comfortable. So I feel like all these things, right down to this conversation right now, were brought about through the business, through my effort, through the willpower that is my partner and I to put this whole thing together, right? And I'm becoming more and more aware of it, more conscious of it every single day. And this conversation is just further proof of that. You know what I mean? Had we not met through
Yeah.
the restaurant,
Through
we
the
wouldn't
restaurant.
we wouldn't have understood that we had things in common. Had we not spoken repeatedly
Right. Yeah.
about mindfulness, for example, we would never have known that we were following the same path. So
Obstructing the line while
Yeah.
people are waiting for their waffles. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And taking it
Yeah.
as, to me, there was always this thing about, and it was a snag I had for so long, and I'm not saying I'm free of it, but it has less of a grip on me, is that this notion of work-life balance, and it's like, oh, I have to have balance between work me, family me, friend me,
Is there a
meditator
way?
me. But the thing is that there is no balance.
Yeah.
It's all
Yeah.
life. It's
Yeah.
all part of your life. So I was thinking, oh, I have to go away from work to make friends. I have to go away to spend time with my partner. And I'm not realizing that I could have friendships through work.
Right.
I could make connections through work. I could expand the quality of my life in all aspects through my work. Or, conversely, at home, I could still be working when I'm at home, having inspirational ideas on what to put
Right.
on the menu. And it's not like, oh, I'm talking about work at home. The line was blurred, not in a way where I'm just always working or always at home. It's just, I didn't look at it as I had to be away from a certain place in order to have what I thought I couldn't have in that place. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yes.
So, and once again, I keep coming back to it, but this conversation right now is proof of that. It's like I would have thought that I had to not be at work
Right.
to make
To
the
meet people.
connection.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I've been able to see that more clearly and not let it bring me down. You know what I mean? Or
Does it
feel
make
like
it easier that work doesn't have to feel so much like a job. It
It
feels
does.
like a
It
passion.
does. And I mean, it's weird you say that because to say I'm passionate about waffles is a weird one because I can't say I'm passionate about the waffle per se, in that I'm passionate about being self employed, self reliant, and there isn't a real honor in feeding people. And because we all need to eat, and eating is part of sustenance, it's part of life,
Mm-hmm.
it's part of what keeps us going. And in the process of feeding people, which I find quite an honorable thing, like I found teaching to be a very honorable profession. Um, I find that feeding people, when feeding people, you can see them at their best or at their worst, and you can take them as they are, and you can have the conversations with them. So, you know me, I like
Yeah,
to
yeah,
talk. I
yeah.
talk with my people when they come through the door, and I've been able to start the conversation with someone through the process of feeding them, and that is
It's precisely how we met.
that's how
Yeah,
we met.
yeah.
That's how I met a lot of people in in the last 10 years or so, but it's also a way that I've connected with people. And I was always a people person. I've always been extremely social. Uh, I was a very I had a humanist approach to teaching with my students. So it was a lot about conversation, getting to know them, letting them get to know me. And once you have that connection, for lack of a better word, then you can go anywhere together. Whether it's teaching them something, whether it's, helping them become a better person or learn work study habits or even how to live an ethically and morally good life. You know what I mean? So it was a lot of those things. So I took that humanist approach or that people centered approach into the business of restauranting, right? So and I'm very aware of the fact that it's a food service industry and service is half of the equation. Food for sure. We have a very original product that is delicious, and I'm not gonna throw shade on that. It's an amazing product. But the service involved with it, the interactions,
Yes.
the personable aspect of it is very important to us. So I think that's also valuable. Yeah.
Incredible, man.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about the future holds for the Waffle Bus? Next 5 years. What do you?
Yeah,
What's
so
the? Is
it's
there?
interesting because
Yeah,
like 5 years, like five
10
years ago,
years.
I would have said I had a plan that is different now than So there's we had
5 years ago,
yeah
did you imagine having the
yeah
place in New
we
Glasgow?
always had a yes. Well, we actually 5 years ago we thought it would have been Dartmouth.
Hmm.
So we've always had this. We've been ambitious, if you will, or just confident, or 5 years. 5 year plan 5 years ago was to have a spot in Dartmouth or Halifax, and we had almost got to the point of almost signing a lease in a spot in 2020. And then the
Okay.
pandemic happened and everything shut down, and it was kind of very fortuitous for us because we ended up not getting it and not being too hung up on it, and riding out the pandemic like everybody else did as best we could, staying in business, which is pretty amazing. And but that fell through for us, but it didn't change the fact that we wanted to expand. And so instead of getting sort of set back, if you will, you take, because honestly, when is there never not going to be a setback? There's
Of course.
always,
Of course.
there's never not going to be something to deal with,
Yep.
whether it's through work or relationships or parenting or health or I'm never going to wake up on a perfect day where, not sorry, on a day where there's nothing that I need to address. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So the setback was taken sort of in stride as best we could. This is during the pandemic, so everyone was feeling a little bit on edge, to say the least. And then towards the end of 2020, early 2021, a friend of ours, once again, that I've known since I moved here, shout out to Joe McEachran, he got us in touch with some people that were looking to rent a spot in New Glasgow. And it turned out that we met them, we hit it off right away, and by the end of that first meeting, they were willing to give us the place. So now we're celebrating our first year anniversary there next week, and the plan is to celebrate that, acknowledge it, while still running the place here in
Of
Antigonish
course.
as we've always
Yeah.
run it. Not a
It's
lack,
wonderful,
not a
man.
drop in quality or service or any of that stuff. But ultimately, what Nicole and I would like to do is a third one in the next couple of years in Truro. And then after that, I'll be in my mid 50s, late 50s. I would maybe pull the bell, ding ding, and pass it on to my sons, or
Hmm.
because ultimately, especially my partner Nicole, she's got this crazy ambition. it could be a national thing, you know, and if it could be in every major city if we wanted, we could franchise it. But this is thinking a little too far ahead. I think what we're doing here is trying to grow something extremely local, grassroots, still family run, and then when we bow out, pull the bell, whatever you will, then it would be ready to jump to that next level, whether it be a
Selling
franchising
perhaps.
across the country. So we'll see what happens. The next plan for us is to keep focusing on the 2 restaurants and the food truck we have, with a plan for a third one in Truro for 2025, and then from there just sort of take stock, right? Like I said, I'm 50 and I still have the ambition, but I'm very aware of the energy I have in the gas tank. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you
Yeah.
know, today's been a 15-hour day and I'm still here talking and engaging with you and happy to be here. But I'm also very aware of there's a certain pace that can't always be maintained. And getting too big or going too hard right now would definitely not be healthy for myself or my partner or my kids. So the balance, once again, right? I want to have time to expand my business while still being very aware of the fact that my sons are only going to be this age for this one time with me anyways.
Of course.
And so the plan is to get to Truro in the next couple of years, and then after that, we'll see. I mean, ideally, of course, Dartmouth and Halifax, but that's going to be after the third one is established, right? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, no.
Wow.
Yeah. That's the idea.
So how does a man like you, a business owner, a father, a meditator, a human being,
Yeah.
how do you find the energy to get it all done, man?
That's a really interesting question because I've been asked that so many times, and I have to be honest, Janaya, I don't know. I'm born with it. It's not to say I don't have times when I feel low energy or have lower moods or get angry or get worried. You know what I mean? But it's that I never stay in those places for very long. And there's an energy that is innate in me that I think is just part of my character. I can't put a finger on it. The best thing I can say is that I'm naturally curious. I see things and I want to make them better, whether it's at school, whether it's in my business, whether it's in my community. And the older I get and the more my practice deepens, the more I'm hyper aware of the gift of life, and that this is a true gift. And as I told you before we came on air here, I'm by no means religious, but I am spiritual, and I have major qualms with all major religions, but I'm an extremely spiritual person, and my spirituality has led me to understand that we're just very lucky to be here. That's a beautiful little musical cue.
Yeah, but of course, man.
And I don't feel like how can I put this? Losing sight of how precious a gift life is in the cards for me. Yeah, that's kind of it. You know, I can't really give you. I mean, I can talk about past life, earlier life experiences that I think may have forged that outlook. You know, but where I find the energy, I can't honestly say. I mean, as a child, I was diagnosed with ADHD, and my mother never put me on medication, and I'm really happy she didn't. I just learned that I have a lot of energy in me, and I learned how to channel it in ways that, and I'm going to be straight up here, that weren't always very healthy or productive, but have become healthier and more productive as I get older, right? Yeah. Because people ask me all the time. I had one of our customers come in the other day, and he's a professor at St. FX, a French teacher, and I got to know him through my career as a French teacher at Pomkit. And he's like, I'm not gonna. At one point, he's talking to me in French, and he's like, I'm not gonna ask you where you get the energy from. He's just like, some people are just born with it. And to me, that was the closest I could get to an explanation by way of a non-explanation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because it's like, I could sit here and tell you, oh, this is what it is, or I do this. I mean, I'm active. I like to stay active. I surf when I can. An exercise regimen. I meditate. I play music. I read a lot. I have these passions or pastimes or passions that I acknowledge and that I try to do as often as I can. And that may feed into the energy, but I'd be remiss to say that that's it, because I don't honestly know where it comes from. I think it's just an appreciation to be alive, without getting too much into it. I've had, those that know me quite well, I have a laundry list of past traumas I've gone through. My mother died of Lou Gehrig's disease over an 11-year period from the time I was 12 till I was 23, and I was one of her primary caregivers. So I lived through that with my sisters, a bunch of other pretty heavy stuff in my childhood, divorce, jumping around, all this stuff, always with my mother until she passed away. And I think those experiences shaped me inevitably to the preciousness of life, right? Especially with watching someone go through every stage of dying over the course of 11 years. And Lou Gehrig's disease is quite a nasty disease. It's a disease of the central nervous system, and lack of mobility atrophies the muscles until eventually they can't breathe and they pass. So Stephen Hawking had it, for example. Yeah. So it's a very visceral, intense way to die. But living through that through 11 years, and not always, I look back on it and there's ways that I wish obviously I could have acted differently. I was a 12-year-old boy till I was 23. We all have to go through stages of growth, and I went through them while doing that. But that experience helped me, I think, no, I know it helped me appreciate the preciousness of life, right? It demystified death for me, which is great. Mm-hmm. And it also gave me an appreciation of the preciousness of life. And so the energy is a bit tied into that, to knowing that this is a gift and knowing that I should try as best I can to appreciate it to the fullest. Yeah. So maybe that's a little bit,
I mean, your mom would be, yeah, man, that's tough. Yeah. I know how that can be, dealing with sickness in the family at a young age. Uh-huh. And to go through all of that, and then to have the perspective that you do and the energy that you find. Yeah. Usually a lot of people, when you talk to them, you find, yes, their anguish sometimes is what drives their behavior. Mm-hmm. But a lot of us, again, a lot of people out there, I'm sure, they find it hard to get over that hurdle and to have the energy. Yeah. They become consumed, by the pain itself.
Yeah. Now, I absolutely, and I just wanted to interject by saying that I came to these realizations over the course of decades, right? Yes. So I was consumed. I dealt with it in unhealthy ways as a young man, with substance abuse and alcohol and drowning myself in relationships and actively not addressing it. Yeah. And clearly unhealthy, right? Even in retrospect, because hindsight's 2020. Yeah. I knew at the time that it was unhealthy, but I couldn't face what I needed to face, right? And so over the course of literally, Janaya, like 20 years, because I started really living a more self-examined life, even while having all these quote-unquote successes, whether it's being a teacher, even beginning my first child, being a parent, starting this business, right? I was still not living as self-examined a life as I thought, and I was still feeding into behaviors that were making me unhappy, that were subsuming me, that were consuming me, even though I was successful, air quotes there for those that aren't watching. And so it was only when I started living a more self-examined life, when I started changing habits, behavioral habits, right? Interpersonal habits, personal habits, that I was able to start seeing these things and using all of that experience, the grief, the unacknowledged grief that I hadn't really worked through yet, to feed a more healthy way of living. And that's what led to change in my relationships. It brought me to meditation, my meditation practice, to mindfulness, to Vipassana, to Dzogchen, to many, many things. And I'm just extremely grateful that I found it. You know what I mean? That I found a way to channel all that energy that I might have been using as a younger man. And once again, I was, by any metric, successful. I had a good paying job. I had a partner, I had a child, but I hesitate to use the word happy, but I wasn't as content as I am now because I don't think that I was addressing underlying things. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes.
So a lot of times people can be consumed by the anguish, whether they acknowledge it or not. And they're both dangerous, whether you don't acknowledge it or you do, but you just let it guide your actions, right? I think it's only through experience and time and honestly being willing to self-reflect and to look at yourself honestly, right? Because being able to appreciate life is to be able to appreciate it with as clear a vision as possible. Do you know what I mean? And
for better or worse.
For better or for worse. For better and for worse, because it's going to be both, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be both. Yeah, take it as it's presented to you, not as you want to see it. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like
that's a very Buddhist-like thing to say, my good friend.
Thanks.
Very Buddhist-like thing to say.
Well, I just feel like I've stopped
it's
trying
true.
to put
It's
a
true,
framework
though.
on
Yeah,
things. You know
it's
what
true,
I mean?
right?
Yeah. I can veer into Buddhist jargon and terminology because I've been reading a lot in the last few years. And like I said, my sister is an avowed Buddhist, as she has been for over 20 years. And she speaks to me about it all the time. And she would tell me, Alexander, you're a Buddhist even though you don't know. Yeah. You know, by the way you live your life, I'm telling you. And I always took that to heart because I love her. But as I've been delving into it over the last 2.5 years, and I'm a voracious reader, I read a lot. For all types of reasons. I'm just finding that a lot of the ways that I see life are somewhat similar to some of this stuff. So stop fighting what's happening and accept it for what it is. You know what I mean? It sounds, it's not cliche, but it's been used and repeated and rephrased in so many ways that it sounds so cliche, but it's the truth. And we all fight what's coming towards us. You know what I mean? We all fight or try to put a frame or try to control or try to direct what's coming at us.
Of course.
Whether it's a conversation, whether it's a customer, whether it's a partner or anything, a dog, your friends. Yeah. So I've found this way to just step back and to just let it happen. Be engaged, of course. I'm not talking about being nihilistic and disengaged, but just let it come without trying to put a frame or a context over it. Right. And it's been extremely liberating for me, especially in regards to business. My relationship with my kids and my partner obviously have benefited from it a lot, but I always worked on those to a certain extent. They were some of the primary relationships in my life, but the business part had become so overwhelming, and I was having a hard time appreciating it for what it was. And with this meditation practice, along with a few other things we can talk about if you want, has really put things into focus for me, and it helped me appreciate what I have even more, right?
Yeah, well, please for the guests, because we want to learn, about what aids you in your day-to-day. And, obviously meditation is one of those things. Yeah. So what does your practice look like? Of course, you mentioned Vipassana, mindfulness.
Yes. So I have to credit, there is a neuroscientist, podcaster, philosopher named Sam Harris, and I was listening to him, and I got into him through his books, his atheist books against organized religion. That's how I started, right? And then I listened to his podcast, and then he has a 30-year practice, meditation practice, and from a very secular standpoint, non-metaphysical, just really straightforward. This works. Try it.
Very pragmatic.
Yeah. And so I started essentially through him, and he was my sort of springboard. And his, like I said, is a mixture of Dzogchen, Vipassana, and mindfulness-based meditation practice. So that was the springboard, and after that, I just started reading voraciously once again, whether it would be Joseph Goldstein or David White or Sharon Salzberg or the Dhammapada or the words of the Buddha himself or other spiritual texts, and so they inform my practice. So basically what I do is for me, there's a couple things that are very important. Consistency, so every single day. Now, I'll sit here, I'm not going to lie, and I've been practicing now steadily for 2 years, and in 2 years I missed 3 days. And those were for reasons that, like there was something that came up, and I just, I I was on a plane. I hadn't slept in 12 hours. I had to go to sleep.
Now, why is it important to you?
It's important.
Why is it important to do every day?
Every day. Here's the thing. It's important for me because it builds upon something that is building in me. So I think that having the time to acknowledge and to remind yourself to be present, to be aware, to acknowledge the gift of this life, to spend some time sending loving kindness to my family and to my friends, is a way for me to strengthen the tenets of the practice that have taken root inside of me, and also to bring it into my day. So by that I mean, when I get off the cushion, the insights that come to me, the openness, the awareness, the clarity that comes to me through my daily practice doesn't end when I get up off the cushion.
Yeah.
It actually becomes part of my daily interaction.
Yeah, which is the point.
Which is the ultimate goal for me, right? Without there being a goal, because like I told you before, I was in the beginning, I was very goal-oriented. You know, you have to get X amount of time on the cushion in order to get to stages of 1 or 2 or 3 of enlightenment, and then whatever it may be, whatever you're searching for. And then somewhere around the 6-month period point, I gave that up. In that I gave up the striving. I gave up the goal-oriented purpose,
Samsara.
Right? I was trying, ideally, that's what I'm looking for, right? Samsara, or just this idea of being able to practice for no other reason than to practice.
Yeah.
And inherently, and I'm still at the nascent stage of my practice. Like, and this is something that I came to it late. I was 47, you know, I'm 50 now. But it's something that, you know, barring a vegetative state, I will be able to do for the rest of this life. And it's something that brings me so much gratitude, so much comfort. Do you know what I mean? Like, for example, I'm a guitarist. I play guitar. I play a lot of music, right? I could lose my hand.
Yeah, it's a life. It's something you can always bring with you, right?
But this is something that, and so to my point about the everyday is like to acknowledge that, to chip away at it, not chip away at it, to add to it, to strengthen it, is why I need to do it every day. For me, it's very, and I mean, I could cite, or I could even reference the neurological benefits of doing it even for just 20 minutes a day. And I would refer to Jonas Kaplan and Sam Harris's work on that. It's very, very good in regards to the benefits of neuroplasticity.
Well, there's a correlation between meditation and the amygdala shrinking, which is your stress response.
Exactly.
Right? So
and turning off the default mode network, right?
Yes.
And so it's strengthening, but honestly, it's something that it's the daily practice is something that I don't even think. It's like brushing my teeth. Like, you know, like, I'm not gonna brush my teeth today. Like, gross, man. I'm gonna brush my teeth. It's exactly like that. And the times when I miss it, few and far between. The first time it happened, I beat myself up, and I realized, became mindful, and what am I doing? I'm beating myself up because I didn't sit. That's counterintuitive. That's counterproductive. And the 2 other times, it was just like, you know, fart in the wind. It was gone. I didn't. I thought about it for a second, and that was it. You know, so daily practice has become part of my life, and it's still something relatively new. 2.5 years now, right? Spending time with my children. I love spending time with my children. Passing on the wisdom I have, teaching them how to be good people.
Are they interested in meditation? Do they see Daddy?
They both sat with me a couple times.
Of course.
One is 7.5, and he's very busy. He's like me, you know what I mean? Borderline ADHD, but not, and very engaged with the world and very hands-on. And the other one's 13.5, so he is very much in the thralls of puberty. But I'll say this, is that they see what it does for me.
Right.
And I don't know if you've been in a house with a lot of young children. I'm sure you have at one point or another.
Yeah, at one point.
Right?
Not recently.
You know that it's very loud.
Yes, man,
and throw 2 dogs into the mix, and then, you know, and then a partner as well. And it's busy. But they know when Papa's meditating, people will take the time to be quiet for me, relatively quiet, or go outside. I don't ask for strict silence. I'm not like that. Of course, you know, I take it as it comes. But they have seen how much of a benefit it is to me, and in turn, how it positively affects our relationship. So they acknowledge that and give me the time to practice in a way that's fantastic. You know what I mean? And I love them for it. So yeah, that's one of the reasons, one of the big reasons why I think daily is very important. Like reading, for example, I'll do that
Yes.
on a daily basis, and a lot of times people are like, "Oh, I just can't find the time to read." Like, well, that's because you as in the collective you've made this assumption that to read is to block off half an hour or block off 45 minutes,
Of
and
something more important.
right?
Hmm.
And so I always got two books on hand, and I'll read for 2 minutes
Yeah.
as a palate
Because
cleanser.
you identify with the benefit. You say
Yeah,
a little bit of knowledge today, a little bit of meditation today, a
yeah,
little exercise
yeah.
today. I personally kind of have my uh, trinity, as I like to call it.
Yes.
Body, mind, and soul. So I
Yeah.
start off with mind, reading. I like to
Yes.
read a little bit, something that feels like it's educational or
Yeah.
something that I'm interested in.
Exactly.
Body, working out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You got the body is so important. We keep that well.
Yeah.
Keep off, disease
Yeah.
and other
Absolutely.
things that can harm us. And then soul.
Yeah.
I go ahead and I meditate, and
Yeah.
I think it's nice because we don't have these overall. Sometimes we feel like instincts. We kind of need to create that instinct,
Yeah,
and that
yeah,
habit
yeah.
becomes kind of our instinct. You say now you had to create that
Yeah.
pattern of meditating,
Do routine.
the routine.
Yeah. To create the instinct.
Yeah.
What does your meditation practice look like?
Oh, well, it's every day as well.
Yeah.
It's every day as well. And like I said, it's part of my trinity.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to read a little bit about meditation each day,
Yeah.
or whether it's about human nature.
Mm-hmm.
But it depends. I might go in any particular order.
Yeah.
Maybe meditation isn't the first thing I do.
Yeah.
Maybe it's, read a little bit,
Yeah.
spark that curiosity,
Yeah.
work out, and
Yeah.
then do that.
Yeah.
But it's always part of my, my day to day.
Yes.
Even recently, I've been doing, like, probably the last year or so, sauning.
Yeah.
Have you been in the sauna for? Have you tried?
Back in the day, I
have you tried
had
that?
quite often, but I haven't recently. No, I went the other way, right? Was because I would surf for a lot, so I'd go
Okay.
really cold,
Cold,
right?
yeah.
Really, really cold. But I do know the benefits, and I would love to actually start doing that again, just to sweat out the stuff, because I've always been active.
Yep.
Like, I like this idea of mind, body, and soul.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm right there with you with the reading. I'm right there with you with the meditation, and now I'm right there with you in just, how can I put this? Well, physical, like workout regimen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm realizing that I can't always go surfing. I can't always hop on a bike and go on tour, right? But I have to still be able to incorporate physical activity in my life, especially as I'm getting older. And I want to live, I want to increase not just my lifespan, but my health span.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yes, yeah.
I want to be as healthy as I
100%.
can for as long as I can. And though that is an integral part to it, right? And I think I had been neglecting it. I know I had.
You look good. You
Oh,
look fit, bro.
Thanks, brother, man. Yeah, I mean, I have been. Yeah, I'm on a strict regimen nowadays. So I work out 6 days a week.
Yep.
But that's only been for a couple months now, right? But before that, my job is very active, and I was always
Of course.
quite, if not fit, at least very active and healthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like a lot of people I know seem to go down this path these days. But it's as they're getting older, taking stock of things as you get to a certain point, midlife, whatever you want to call it. But 50s, my midlife, statistically speaking, was about 6 years ago. But
Right.
and just thinking about, what it's not that right? The average Canadian mean says midlife crisis for me was 42.
You're supposed to be there. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Without acknowledging that I could die tomorrow, for Christ's sake, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But my life has just taken a bit more of a lean towards health consciousness, and I don't mean like I've always been healthy in regards to, like, especially in the last 15 years, what I eat, how I treat people.
Sure.
More not from a moral and ethical standpoint, though that I've always addressed. I'm talking more about my health, my physical health, and what I need to do to ensure that I can live a healthy, happy, strong life for as long as I can, right? What's the point of making it to 95 if those last 15 years
Absolutely.
suck ass? Just
Absolutely.
forget it, So I have been doing that a lot more. My oldest son actually really got me back into it because he started working out. I was like, he didn't pick that up from me, right? Because I'm more of like a walk in the woods. Like I said, go surfing, ride my bike. There was always like an activity involved with the exercise I did.
Right.
Not just exercise for exercise's sake. So he started working out, resistance bands, the weights, and then doing the calisthenics, and then got him a bar for Christmas. And then finally I'm like, he's telling me something here, and I need to. And so I started doing it with him, And now I got my own regiment set up. We got
wow.
ourselves a home gym a couple weeks ago, and I set that up. And
So your son inspired you.
he did. I mean,
Shout out.
he showed me, he inspired me to get back
To get back into it.
into it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then also the things I was reading, and sort of I listened to Andrew Huberman
Yep.
too,
Yep.
talk, and he's got quite a few great things about just biohacks, if you will,
Yes,
for
yeah.
staying healthy, especially as you get older. And it just so happens I'm right around that age those guys are at, so all their interests are kind of right where my interests are. So
Young men too, as
and
we see.
for sure, yeah,
As we see the future ahead of us. Yeah.
no doubt. And I'm not one to look back and regret anything because it's just my life, right?
Yeah.
But had I had this information 20 years ago when I was
I
30,
mean,
you know what I'm saying? Like, I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
wow. So
Yeah,
I'm
the
just
world
happy it came
changed
to me when I
quickly.
did. Oh, it has. The access to information, so much has changed. You know what I mean? I get it. So the access to information has changed. So had I had that, maybe I would obviously be a different man. But I'm extremely happy that I found it when I did, and I look forward to it. You know what I mean? Like I'm at the point now where I'm not going to say I'm off, but I definitely if I miss a day or more than a day because I'm doing 6 days a week now, I definitely feel it. It's like if I don't meditate, you know what I mean?
Yes.
I just kind of hit the cushion, or I got to go downstairs and do some work. So those things have really helped me find a center. You know what I mean? Aging too.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Wisdom comes with age. It really does. You understand what to put your focus on a bit better. What's not worth your time? What's worth your time? You know what I mean? So that has helped too. All those the tending to the body, the mind, and the soul. All those things have really helped. Really, really helped.
Now, in the middle of all that, tending to your mind, to your body, and your soul, and your children, and your work, you also have a partner.
Yes.
And so Nicole and you have been together for
22. So we started. We counted from when we started dating. So that would have been January of 2002.
And
so
so
we've been together almost 22 years.
Okay, so
This January.
let me ask. That's a long time. Congratulations, brother.
Yeah.
First of all, anybody who's listening out there,
Yeah.
as we hear, relationship longevity isn't exactly in these days.
Yeah.
You could put it that way.
It's not easy.
How does how do you yeah, brother, lay it on us. How do we see you now doing well in a good place with everything considered?
Yeah.
How is the relationship, shaped all of that?
Yeah.
In its own way.
I mean, I don't think I could have done. I know I couldn't have done most of the things I've done in the last 20 years without her support in one way or the other. And this is not to say that it's always been rosy, because I mean, one thing I can say for sure. Well, there's a couple things I can say for sure. One of them being is that it's work, right? And I mean that in the most positive way possible, not in a negative way. Is that a relationship is work, and if you don't put the time into it, if you don't work on it, if you don't identify what works and what doesn't work and address those things, it will atrophy and it will wither and it will die. And so it sounds kind of nihilistic, or fatalistic, but it is really true. And a lot of people sometimes see a relationship as a thing, to have, and then you have it, and that's good. I'm going to have it, right? And they don't realize that you need to spend the time tending to it. So, in the 22 years,
like a living thing. Yeah.
Like everything, like
your
mind.
Like a living thing.
Like a living thing, because it is a living thing. And I have felt like over 22 years, there's been ups, there's been downs, there's been some really low moments, there's been some, euphorically high moments. The best moments of my life, really, I've lived with this person, right? But above all, the first thing is knowing that it's work. And the second thing is acknowledging the fact that I truly, truly love her. And that is ultimately what got us through some of the darkest periods of our relationship. So admitting that it's work, focusing on it, tending to it, love, the fact that we love each other, that we care about each other, and mutual respect is another one, because I respect the hell out of her. I see her for who she is, an extremely hard worker, imaginative, creative, loving mother, extremely caring daughter to her parents, and it inspires me, you know what I mean? And gives me a sense of security, and knowing that there's people like that out there that can thrive and can do
Yes.
well.
Yes.
Now, this is not to say that we don't have issues with each other that we know we need to work on, and that we consciously acknowledge and work towards doing. I just want to be very clear and make it not just an ultimately rosy or an ultimately negative one, but a really honest appraisal of what a 22-year relationship looks like. She's my best friend. I spend more time with her than anybody else. We've started this business together, right? So that's another level that I haven't even addressed, right? Like before the business started, we had put out our business plans. We had thought about all these aspects, but we never for a moment thought about what it was going to do to our relationship. Because going into business with your life partner, your wife, whatever you want to call, adds a heavy layer to an already very complicated and dynamic and fluid relationship, right? Because we're life partners, we're parents, you know what I mean? We both have our careers before, and now we're going to go ahead and throw business and work together. And all the challenges of owning a business and all the stresses and all the pettiness that can sometimes come and the negativity is infused into your relationship, right? And it invariably affects your relationship. And then you start internalizing that. And so that was really hard. You know, like we talk about how great the Waffle Bus is, and it is. But in the beginning, especially those first 5 years, it damn near almost killed us, right? Like by that I mean our relationship, you know, because we lost ourselves in the business, right? So once again, what kept it there, what kept it strong, what kept it going was the fact that we knew it was going to be work, and this was just a shitty time at work. You know what I mean? Right. We had to put the time in. And the love, you know, we spent some time going to counseling together to keep things, you know, we were willing to work on these things, you know. And the fact that we had created this thing, which is to say the business, which was successful, you know, and that we stepped back and realized that if, you know, we don't work on keeping that business alive and this relationship alive, we'll have none of that. So those things altogether helped us, you know, stay together, I guess I want to say. I just really, after all these years, I kind of pinch myself. I can't believe it. You know, 22 years. That's like almost half of my adult life, you know, that I've been with this person. I relocated completely because I'm from Vancouver Island, right? And didn't even question it. You know what I mean? Questioned it a little bit after I got here. And, you know, I visit regularly back home. But I pinch myself. I feel like she's on the same path that I am, you know? She has started living a much more self-examined life as well, in a different way than me, because she's a different person, but still nonetheless, right? And she inspires me still. I see her. I see what the strength in her and her vision and her ambition and all these things, you know? So I don't know. Once again, it's one of those things where you asked me before, like, where do you get all that energy? I can't say honestly. All I can say for sure is that, like I said, I love her to pieces. I respect her, and we treat it like it's. We acknowledge that it's not always going to be smiles and sunshine, but that it's work, right? Yeah.
Well, man, I mean, it's not easy holding all those things down at once.
No.
I mean, all things considered, you're doing the best that you can, and I mean, you're running a successful business. The relationship, you said, had its ups and its downs.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what people are trying to understand is how does someone play all these roles and still make it all work. And I mean, obviously, as you say, there's no clear-cut way to go about it, but you know, your relationship still stands, and I think that's really a testament to you and to, like, you know, Nicole and herself. So I know Nicole isn't here, but maybe she's your you know, co-conspirator in the waffle game. I mean, maybe if you could just let us know a little bit about her and, you know, the woman that means so much to you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, ideally, I would let her speak for herself,
of course,
right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I can give you the potted bio if you want. I mean, she's an extremely caring, creative, loving human being who puts family above almost everything else, which is very, very inspiring. I mean, I'm part of the family. You know, our kids are the family, but her family as well. extremely talented and creative in regards to the arts. So she's been belly dancing for 15, 16 years. Before that, she was a seamstress. I mean, had the arts kind of in her. And the waffle bus is, I mean, I consider some of that food art, you know. And it was her initial inspiration that started the whole thing. She started up selling sweet waffles at the farmer's market, right? Before I even brought, this is her idea completely, right? And then I came on board about 6 or 7 months, maybe a year later, and we started selling savory stuff together. And then that's when we sort of, the vision started solidifying, if you will, right, to what it is now. But ultimately, how can I put this without gushing too much? It's just, she's obviously an extremely special person to me because I have taken the time to come here and relocate my life and start a new path. And she inspires me pretty much every single day in that, you know, that kindness I was talking about that Nova Scotians have. She has it in a way that is inspiring to me to be a kinder person, you know. Now, funny enough, none of these insights came through meditation for her, right? And I don't want to say I'm pushing the meditation on her, but she sees that I do it every day. She sees the benefits, right, in many ways. And you know, you can't push people towards it.
I mean, even, you know, the whole idea of the practice is, you know, put no head above your own.
Exactly.
To come and see, you know, it's just a supplement.
It is.
You know, it's not something that you can be anything as being a Buddhist, but it's just about, you know, adding things to your life. Right?
And exactly. She adds things to my life without, you know, all of the meditative practice. And now I'm just kind of returning the favor as best I can. Now that being said, like I would love for you to have her on.
We will. We definitely will.
And let her speak for herself because, you know, she's her own person, and that's one thing that we're obviously such a bonded unit. You know what I mean? And by that I mean a business entity. Like we are a brand, literally now, right? And our brand, we're intrinsically attached to it as a couple. That's one thing, and then we are married, you know. Have we been married for 14 years together for, like I said, almost 22, but married for 14. And then we also we're parents, we have children. So the layers of attachment, right? Some people may find smothering, some people might overwhelming. To me, it's solidifying, right? But in all of that attachment, we are still very much our own people. She has her interests, I have mine, right? Some of them run together and some of them don't, right? So that's all that to say that I think you would gain a lot by having her side of the story as well when it comes to the business and to her life, right? I'm grateful, and I'm very aware of how lucky I am.
Of course.
To have her, and like I said, just to have this life with her and with those kids, you know, and to be my own boss and to be sitting here talking to you, like. She reminds me without her saying a thing to be grateful, you know, every single day. So that's a bit of why who she is and why I love her. You know,
of course. I mean,
and that's not to say it's not. It's rose-colored glasses all the time. I don't want to paint that picture, but it's just there's a deep love there that I have that goes beyond just love. There's, like I said, there's the respect for her determination and her mind and the way she raises our kids and the tenacity of her business acumen, you know, and all those things. Like, so it's multi-layered for sure, right?
Would you say there's a huge contrast or a huge, let's say, combination of commitment and sacrifice that goes into having a good relationship?
Yeah, there's almost equal amounts, and in some cases more of the sacrifice. Equal amounts. I mean, this is the thing, and once again, I speak now as of where I am now. I wasn't always here, right? Yeah. I'm not saying that I was Buddha on the mountaintop 10 years ago and I was doing everything right, because I wasn't. I was still, like 10, 15 years ago, I was still, like I said earlier on in the conversation, treating my issues the wrong way, with substance abuse and with alcohol and with, like, you know, just a lot more socializing to mask or to numb or to not address, right? But what I can say now is that I've found a way through the relationship to address the things I need to address in a healthy way. And it hasn't driven us apart. It's brought us closer together. And our relationship now is in a very good place. And it's only in a good place because of the work that we've done. You know what I mean? That's all it is. So ultimately, there's a fine line because, you know, you have to work at it, like I say, for that healthy relationship, for that healthy, truly healthy interaction, and being supportive, but still giving independence and freedom to be yourself, and working when it's rough. But you also have to be able to identify, and I'm speaking for other people out there that might be listening, when it's time to leave. Because sometimes it's time to leave. Right? And I can speak candidly here, is that we came to that point, the two of us, and we sat down and we looked at each other and we said, is this the time to leave? And we were able to talk and realize that we wanted, no, it wasn't. We still want to work at this. You know,
that's
when
so
you're
beautiful,
faced with that question. But we asked it to ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Because we wanted to put all the cards on the table.
So communication, open communication, obviously, is the only way to have those conversations, to be able to have something to work at.
100%. And it's not, and it's not to say that we're always communicating openly. Sometimes we're not ready to share what we have to share. Sometimes we're just in the moment, or we're too angry, or we're too sad, or we're too busy with work and it's not the right time, you know? Like, right words at the right time. You know what I mean? That's what you have to do. Yeah. And so it's very important to communicate and to know when to communicate, right? And so if we can't communicate at a certain time, it's as simple as, like, let's talk about this after supper. Let's talk about this tonight. I can't do this now. I'm too overwhelmed. You know what I mean? Yeah. So open communication is key. And sometimes you have to be pushed to the limit, right? To say, we better talk about this, or it's all going to go ass over tea kettle, right? Mm-hmm. So communication is very important. And not ironically, but funny enough, that transfers over to other parts of your life. So communication is so key in a business partnership. Mm-hmm. Communication is key as an employer to your employees. Communication is key speaking to your child about what's right, you know? So it's like I told you earlier, how I want my meditation practice to seep into the rest of my life. This is another example of communication is something that I value in the relationship. It's something that I can value across all spectrums of my life. At work, you know what I mean, with my friends. Right. So yeah, it's vital. It's vital, right? And once again, it's a cliche to say, well, open communication is the strength of a good relationship. But that's just the words. Yes. It's the actual actions, the uncomfortableness. Yes. Is this the time to leave, right? Asking that question of ourselves, is this it? Is this the time? Because we're smart enough to know, the two of us, that we're not going to stay in a relationship that's poisonous, or that's going to negatively affect our children, right? So we have to ask ourselves honestly, is this something that we want? And if we're going to do it right, then we're going to do it right, and we're going to work on it. And so we ask ourselves the question, we work on it, and lo and behold, now, you know, this was, you know, without putting a date on it, this was, you know, close to a decade ago, the first few years of the business, and we came out stronger, and our business is stronger, our interactions with our communication is stronger, our love is deepened in a lot of different ways, right? We're a lot more open with each other, even than we've ever been, which is just fantastic, right? And we know how to speak. That communication that we've fostered and worked on in the relationship has spilled over into the business. So I know how to talk to my employees in a different way, how to be stern when I need to be stern, how to be compassionate when I need to be compassionate, flexible, or whatever, right? So yeah, it's communication is key for sure, right?
Thanks, man. That's that's things can be tough, and the hard stuff is what makes it all worth it, right? You can't have anything that's fruitful or that lasts, or you know, adds value to your life, unless it's really something that you have to contend with at some point. It can't all be, you know, roses and you know, rose-colored glasses.
I think to your point,
So yeah,
I 100% agree with you. Is I don't even think it would be valuable if it was given to you, or if you didn't have to work for it, because you wouldn't understand the sacrifice,
yes,
the commitment,
yes,
the vision, the tenacity that you need to get that, and that the process of getting it is what makes it valuable. It's not the thing itself. Well, I'm not
yeah,
downplaying the
but no, of course,
the
yeah,
success of our business or how much it brings to us. I'm very aware that I live in a world that waffles built. You know, what
yeah.
I get that. I get it, right? But it's without the struggle, there's no value almost to it. If you had given it to me, if I had inherited the restaurant,
Yeah. TD Jakes actually said this. He had a quote about people want to jump the pain
yeah,
and get right into the triumph.
yeah, yeah,
He said that if I were to just give you $100 million company, which is what you would want,
yeah,
what the average person would want,
yeah,
it would be criminal
yeah,
because you would have avoided all the pain to sustain it.
yeah,
And that's
absolutely,
so true with friendships,
yeah,
life, I
yeah,
suppose,
yeah.
relationships,
Your
and
practice, anything, yeah,
anything,
yeah,
man. You can't avoid
no,
the pitfalls, but
no,
you go through the forest and you walk up the mountain a little bit,
yeah.
and you can change that perspective.
You can. It's interesting because you say, I love that just that visual of being handed the $100 million company, right? And let's say you're given that, and you haven't had any struggle or pitfalls. I mean, there's a good chance you're going to tank that company, and those
Hmm.
pitfalls are going to happen because you were given this, and
Yes,
you're going to experience
yes,
it. I'm not saying that would happen, but someone who doesn't have the experience of running a company that size, and I just think back to how I ran our business 10 years ago, compared because in 2011 is when we brought out the food truck for the first time, right?
right,
2011,
yeah,
and I think about even 2015 when we started the first restaurant, and the things I was doing in that first year was just, it's unbelievably unproductive compared to what I'm doing now and how streamlined we are now and how much better I am at being a restaurateur, an entrepreneur, whatever you want, right? So it's like that you need to work it out. You need to get through it. You need to learn from it to give it value and to be good at it. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's a great quote.
trial and error, man,
Trial and error.
trial
Yeah.
and error, brother.
Yeah.
I mean, now after all this time, Waffle Bus is doing well.
Mhm.
Do you feel like there's ever a moment where it becomes too much? Where now you're saying everything's as big as it could be,
Yeah.
it's as big as it should be.
Yeah.
We still moving on to the next stage. Do you feel like sometimes you just feel like maybe this isn't something that I need to continue with? Or rather, what's been difficult recently?
Well, it's a cruel mistress, man. Like it's a full-time job. Like I don't vacation much. You know what I mean? But we do. I mean, I've been out west. I've traveled with my family to see my family out west, and I try to go every couple of years. But it's an all-encompassing thing. It is like I said earlier about blurring the line between work and life. It's a lifestyle, right? So for me, that's still very hard, right? Like I'm never not working. I might just get a text at 4 a.m. or I might get a call in the evenings or a pipe might burst, and we're the ones that have to deal with it, right? Or a storm comes and I have to
Yep.
pack everything away and get some inverters and some generators and freezers. Like there's always something to do, right? And so and there's always things that are breaking down that need to be fixed. So
Yeah.
it's this constant sort of, like I say, she's a harsh mistress. So for me, it's once again like I was talking about earlier, like just having this change of context. Like it is overwhelming and it's very taxing. And sometimes I wish I could go on vacation for 2 weeks, at the drop of a
So
hat.
you don't get any time off.
Well, I mean,
You guys are of course
I've
busy,
got
yeah.
to the point, Janai, right now. This wasn't like this at the beginning, but I got to the point now where I essentially work. I'm on site at the restaurant in New Glasgow Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday off. So that's pretty good. 4 days a week for me. I get 3 days to my quote unquote myself. I still spend time with my family. But, you know, there are always invariably things I have to do on those 3 days off, run in and drop off some cash or, you know, go in and, you know, blah, 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 right? So at this point, I do feel like my week to week life is quite good in that I've managed to have quite a bit of time to myself and my family and my interests and my passions. But I'm not a fool. I know I'm always on, right? Like the phone's always on me, right? So typically we'll close for about a week at Christmas. We close here in Antigonish for about a week and a half in May, between May and June at the end of the school year and before tourist season starts. And then, you know, we close on all the major holidays and stuff like that. So throughout the course of the year, we're closed for about almost a month, you know what I mean? So I do have that time off for sure, right? And once again, I'm self-employed, so I have to take that into consideration. There's so many perks to this job that are not fiscal or financial, you know what I mean? Like, it's for better or for worse, it's our beast, right? We built it. We can do with it what we want, right? We can change when we want to change. We can expand when we want to expand. We can retract when we want to retract. We can diversify our portfolio when we want to diversify our portfolio. So there's like that. Ownership is a word. Agency would be another word. The agency that comes with being your own boss. And it's not easy, especially in food service. I mean, you know, our profit margins have shrunk exactly at the rate of inflation, if you feel me, right? It's just like, hoya, right? Like, so it's tough, and I won't get into that because that's depressing. But the idea is that we still manage to make it work. Like I said earlier, I'm not going to get rich, but I'm sure as hell going to live my life as best I can. You know what I mean? And I have been. So it's overwhelming. That is definitely one thing that is hard, but also the practice helps enormously to put that into perspective and to see it for the gift that it is. Spend a lot of time. I was a language arts teacher, so I like words. So instead of I have to go to work, I get to go to work.
Yes. How you phrase it matters.
It does.
That's a part
Phrasing
of your intention.
matters,
Part of your intention.
right?
Yeah, phrasing does matter.
So I feel like that is one thing, you know. Not to get too weepy here, but like, you know, of course, especially in the beginning, you have to spend a lot of time growing your business. Like, that's the only way to be successful is to put the time in. Every successful business story I've ever read, you know, they're sleeping on the floors or under the desks, and you know,
that's what I was going to actually ask you. What would you say to someone who's thinking about going down the business, employed route, the business route, small business route? What should they expect, and what can you say to them? You know, what to expect as they go forth with this endeavor.
There's a few things. You know, every business opportunity is different, but there's a few things that are pretty universal. One thing, you're gonna have to work your ass off. Like, there's the work involved is gonna be put aside your social life, put aside your friends, put aside everything, essentially. And focus on your vision. I mean, for us, you know, we started off and it was all day, every day. It's all we did. You know what I mean? We were working we'd go so far with that food truck to get to festivals, to move to promote the brand. We were working all the time for the first. Well, we're still working all the time now, but it's a little different. But we were working those first 5 to 7 years. You know, 80-hour weeks, 80 plus. You know what I mean? And just because it won't happen by happenstance, you know what I mean? And even if it happens by happenstance, it still has to be worked on from that point on. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So,
well, Marcus Aurelius said, you know, well-being is a matter of good character or good luck.
Yeah. There's such a luck factor, and being aware of the luck, right? And conversely, being aware of the bad luck of others.
But putting yourself in that position where you can fail is why you're essentially lucky. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's funny. I just started reading his meditations. Actually, I got it just the other day.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
I started. I've been reading some Stoics for a little while, and I read them back in school when I got my literature degree in my undergrad. I did some Stoic reading, but they're really on vogue again now. They've really come back, right? So I wanted to reread his, right? And I just started a couple days ago, actually. Yeah. So yeah, be ready to work your ass off for at least 5 years. I mean, just hyper focus on what you're doing and be willing and aware of that. That would be the first thing. Sacrifice is another thing you're gonna have to sacrifice. Like, I mean, especially if you believe in something that you think has value,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
If you think it's something that can succeed, right? If you can get behind it, that's another thing, is having something that you feel you can get behind, right? You're not gonna make a pet rock, man. Like, I mean, that's been done, yeah. So, anyways, that's the sacrifice and the all-encompassing nature of the hard work that has to be put into it to succeed, to grow the business. Another one is knowing how to find the right people to surround yourself with to help the vision come to fruition, right? For me, it's finding the right staff, the kitchen staff that are going to take pride in their work, see what we're doing, get behind our business ethos. Once again, have pride in their work, you know what I mean? So those are all things that really have to be taken into consideration before you say, okay, I'm going to start self-employment, the road down south to self-employment. And I mean, nothing is permanent, you know what I mean?
Of course.
Everything changes every single minute, every single second. The truth of impermanence is something I think about a lot. So the fact that I've been doing this for 11 years is a miracle in and of itself. And that if, things go the way we envision, I'll be able to do it for another 10 years or until this train pulls into a station. Yeah. So yeah, those are the things I can say. And every business venture is different. Every sector is different too. You know what I mean? But a lot of success stories that I've read, especially in different fields, whether it's the arts as well, right? There's a certain perseverance, there's a certain dedication, there's a certain sacrifice that's made that I spoke of just a second ago that are needed to get that business off the ground.
You can't get past it. You can't jump the hurdles.
You can't. I mean, and like I said earlier, if you do and you land on the quote unquote jackpot, how do you handle the jackpot, right? Invariably, you squander it because you didn't work up to the appreciation of having it.
Absolutely.
And there's no way around it. I tell my kids this all the time, like effort is everything, like what if I don't do good on the test? If you do the best, if you put your best effort into succeeding on the test, and whatever mark you get is the mark of your effort. And if you try it as hard as you can, that's what I want to see. I just want to see the effort. I want to see the work. Do the work.
Yeah, do the work.
Don't not do the work and then complain about the outcome when you get it.
Yeah.
How do you know what you could have gotten?
Exactly.
And that's how I was with my students when I was a teacher too. Because you see me up here doing the work. I had to work to get here. You had to work to get here and whatever way you did. But now that you're here, you're going to work to get what you're going to have. And
this kind of idea that how do they put it? You don't shine underneath the bright lights. They only reveal the work you did in the dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you grow or you wither, one or the other, right?
But whatever we see, or you are, was all from hard work somewhere where you weren't visible.
Yeah.
Where your dreams were so far off that they were, fantasies.
Yeah, absolutely. And the work can come in acknowledged work and also working through life experiences that shape you, that can be traumatic or can be can spur on growth and can make you actually a better person. You know what I mean? So that's work too. And acknowledging past experiences and how they shaped you, that's work too. You know what I mean? It's living an examined life, looking at the things that you need to do to be better or to move forward in a positive way. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see.
And so I'm thinking, true or false? Answer me a quick true or false question.
Hit me.
Be the example you want to see in the world.
Yeah.
True or false?
So this, for me, is very true. It's very true in that I've learned and I've somewhat known, because some of the most important people in my life, formative people in my life, have shown and not told me. Which is to say, they've shown me through their character, through their work habits, through the way they see the world. And so for me, that's very true in that I want to show by example.
Mm-hmm.
So in my kitchen, nobody's working harder than me.
Right.
And I can do everything in that kitchen. And I expect everyone in my kitchen to do what once I've trained you and I've given you the appropriate time. And I lead by example. So I'm not sitting down while someone's working.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Same thing with my children. Right. And I mean, I strive for this. I don't always get there. But I know that they learn just as much, if not more, by watching how I am as by what comes out my mouth. In fact, a lot of the times, if I try and start proselytizing or speaking or laying down some serious truth, they glaze over.
Of course,
right?
yeah.
Not always, but so that show don't tell is so important to me. I strive for it. I don't always get there, but I really, really do. In that, I think it is more impactful to see it in action than to hear it spoken. And I mean, I was a language arts teacher. I love the spoken word. Like I said, I love reading. Some of my favorite people in the world are writers. You know what I mean? So I understand the power of the spoken word, but there's something about seeing the ethos or the moral character or the ethics, someone's ethical perspective through their actions that is very impactful. So true.
True. Okay. Thank you. I would agree. On that. Yeah, what you give out is proportional to what you get back.
100%. 100%.
Right?
Yeah. And that once again ties into everything we've been talking about.
Yeah.
It's the effort, or it's the care to the relationship, or it's the practice, right? Everything, what you put in is what you take out. And that's how it gains value. That's how it gains value.
And now we have about 10 minutes left. So
cool.
What we'll go with next
time?
That
went by really fast.
Yeah, I know. It's
wow.
a little over an hour and 20 minutes. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, brother. But a little more of like a fun question for you, so we can get a little sense of your personality here. Is there anyone, you're a musician, dead or alive, who would you want to play with, bro?
Oh, jeez.
You know,
well, it's weird because
it can be a band, it can be a group. It doesn't have to be an individual
on,
artist. Yeah, I know. And I mean, you just saw Wu-Tang, and we're gonna probably have to talk about that another time because you're of course. Man, Of course, if you would have me, you would please come back sometime and we can.
If you have me, I'll come back, brother, man. You know I will. I got a lot to talk about.
Of course,
I love to speak.
Yeah,
on many topics. I mean, you're hitting me with a whole side here. Like I was like, I did like so. I'm 50 years old. This year is the 50th anniversary of hip hop. I've been listening to hip hop since I was 11. But I'm also a huge Grateful Dead fan. I've seen a lot of Grateful Dead shows. I'm a huge heavy metal fan. I love country music. I love electronic music. I've seen over 1,000 concerts in my life. It's a huge part of my life. Yeah. It's a huge part of my life.
It's impressive.
So it's hard for me to say. If I was to go by genre, Jerry Garcia was a huge formative musician for me. He was a guitarist and singer for the Grateful Dead in his own music, and just his relentless pursuit of musical knowledge. He was just a fountain of knowledge. He was crippled by his addictions and died too soon in his early 50s because he didn't address those things. But from a musical standpoint, he's very inspiring to me. From a hip hop side, I mean, it's so massive for me. It's really hard. I mean, there's the God MC, like Rakim Allah. Like I would just love to see him. Period. To see him do his craft. I had a brief stint as a hip hop artist back
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh man.
I wrote my rhymes, but the thing is that
I mean, didn't we all for 5 minutes or so in our lives? Anyway.
Many more than 5.
I couldn't even leave my room with it, but you probably were more brave than me.
I went out there, yeah. I was a white dude and I rapped for a bit. The bands I played in were all more guitar oriented stuff, but so Rakim for me is something that I would love to even just, if not play with, just be in the same room as the man and just hear him speak, because he's a seminal artist for me in the world of hip hop. 100%. MF Doom is another guy that changed it for me in the way that I see the art of lyricism in hip hop. He passed away recently too, rest in peace. And then from a metal side, I really loved a band called Caius, which are the germinations for a band called Queens of the Stone Age, which I really enjoy. A band called Tool that I really enjoy. So these are people that I would like to see, or I never I assume or presume that I could play with them. You know what I mean? But these are music is such an integral part of my life. Like my sons have noted it recently too. It's like there's very this is the longest time in a long time there hasn't been music while I've been awake. This conversation. I mean, when I'm meditating, I meditate in silence as well. Fair enough. But music is always on. Podcasting has taken a bit of a front these days because I've been really sort of diving into some stuff. But music plays at the shop all day. I use it as a gift because it's one of the joys of my life. And like I say, I play music. I've written music. Nicole and I have written music together and played music together too. She's a musician as well. So it's an integral part of my life, and a part that I will stay with me once again as long as I have ears. You know what I mean? I mean, there was a period when I was playing and I had dreams and hopes and aspirations of yada yada yada, right?
And Seinfeld.
Yeah, exactly. And the dream, it obviously came and went as all things do, but the love of music stayed there and still stays there now. I love discovering new music. Oh man, it puts the hairs up on end of my arms when I find something that I really love, and I, like I said, I love all styles. So there's a lot there. It's like a bottomless well of divinity and inspiration. Like I just discovered a couple of singer-songwriters that are just blowing my mind. There's this guy, he's either from Ireland or Scotland. His name is Foy Vance, and if anyone's listening, there's this YouTube series he did called Live from the Highlands. It's just beautiful, beautiful. Two musicians out in nature playing music. It's just gorgeous, right? Very meditative, very emotive. Yeah, and the music. That's a long-winded answer because I mean it's hard for me. I could never pin one.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm leaving out the top of my head, like just dozens of
absolutely.
Say me. And I'm just like, okay.
It wasn't supposed to be an easy question. But
fair enough.
Just gonna rack your brain on that one. And I mean, it's too hard to pin it down.
And I mean, I'm
different
sorry,
genres and hip hop alone, whatever genre, whatever time period, you can have hundreds.
Oh man, I have people I listen to that are just up and coming, and I listen to people from the '80s. My palette, like. At the Wu show the other night, right? It was Wu-Tang, Nas, and De La Soul. And I've seen De La Soul in the double digits now. They come to the West Coast when I was out there all the time. I saw them in PEI back in the early 2000s at a festival in Halifax. And but at the concert, right, at one point, there's 11,000 people there, and everyone's bouncing. Everyone's got the W's up, and they're all doing this. And it was this very clear moment where even Nas said, he's like, it's 50 years of this. We took it from the Bronx to everywhere, and this is more than about music. This is about a movement. This is about a lifestyle. This is about connection. This is about spirituality, for lack of a better term here. And there's at least, and I would never have done this back in the day before I started my practice, there was these moments where I just stepped back and had these moments of clear seeing, looking at the whole stadium and the musicians and the feeling in the air and the feeling in me and it was overwhelming, Janai. It was just overwhelming. It was like, I know it's still fresh in me, but I've seen a lot of concerts and I've had quote unquote religious experiences, under the influence, and I was relatively sober here at this one, and I had a moment where I was like, this is bigger than the moment. This is something I'm super grateful for. And they kept saying 50 years, and I'm 50 years old, and all the connection was there. I was like, it was a very moving experience for me. And I've been to a lot of hip hop shows, and they're like notoriously poorly run a lot of the time, and they show up late, and it's just sloppy, and sound system's no good. I've seen a lot of those shows, right? And this is by far the most professional, on point, engaging, one of the best hip hop shows I've ever seen. Like, it was just, there wasn't a bad note. And
you wouldn't expect it from Nas and Wu-Tang.
3 hours. without a set break. It was like,
and in Canada, yeah, you're like, man, thank you.
Yeah.
And that's so inspiring too. They show up.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't really have to.
They don't really have to.
They don't really have to.
Because it's hard to get across the border for a lot of those cats. You feel me? Like it's just like I'm gonna put myself through the trouble because it's gonna be trouble. I'm telling you right now. You know. So exactly, and there was just this feeling of love in the stadium, and it's hard because it's a big freaking place, and it's hard to get that connection with people in such a large space, right? I usually like smaller venues for that very reason, right? I'm not prone to these stadium shows. And so to get that was so impressive. And a lot of it was due to the fact that they were so appreciative. Yes. They were so aware of the love, and they were feeling the love, and they were just like saying it. They were saying, I feel it, you guys. This is unbelievable. And so I go back online, and I've been looking it up, the lead up to the show, look at the set list, how long they're playing, what kind of tracks they're playing. And the average show up until Montreal on the whole tour, like New Zealand, Europe, and then North America, was about 2 hours, right? They played 3 hours. They just were loving it. Like they were just, and you could feel it, right? Yeah. Like I'm not just imagining it wrong. No. I checked it after and compared it to the other shows. I was like, this is... You
broke it down, did your analytics, everything.
I did, man. Mathematics is key. Mathematics is key. So I was very moved, and like it was amazing, and I feel like it also made me realize, I need to do that, if not, more often, at least once a year. Get out there, see something big,
connect on a bigger level.
On that level. Go with a couple close friends of mine that I hadn't hung out with in a while. We got 12 and a half hour drive there, 12 and a half hour drive back the next time. So a lot of time to talk about hip hop, talk about life, talk about everything, and so the whole thing was great. One of my friends, he's a graffiti artist, and so we spent, we did a whole day walking around Montreal, just doing all the graffiti sectors and just filming and just getting inspired by it, which is part of the hip hop culture, as you know, right? So it all tied into going to the show and everything. So it was a good time for sure.
Oh man,
yeah.
You know what?
They killed it.
I'm a little envious because I haven't been to too many shows. I've stuck around this small area. I've seen a few, but not thousands, and in no way some of my idols like Wu-Tang.
I was a metropolitan boy, though, Janai. I wasn't a country boy. I lived in big cities. They would come to me until I hopped on the Grateful Dead train. Did over 400 shows of that, but it's crazy.
I'll get there.
Yeah.
I'll hopefully get there. And maybe
the thing is Halifax is a wonderful spot for music, right? And so is Fredericton is an amazing spot for music, Moncton's an amazing spot for music. I've seen some life-changing shows there, right? Back in the day, I lived there for 3 years. There's some amazing shows there. And, you just got to kind of grab the moment when you can. Yep. If there's something that's relatively close, and it's going to be work, and it's going to be an expense, and you're going to have to carve it out, but if you want it and you want to see it, it's worthwhile. It really is. Especially if it's an artist that you connect with, there's something there. There's a there, as they say.
Yeah.
Right.
Alex, man, this has been extremely wonderful.
Yeah, it really has.
I really appreciate you spending the time with me and talking
so
to
much,
the audience. My very first interview. Yeah. Is there anything within 35 seconds you could say just to maybe about where people can find you online, about your business?
You can find me through our business. We're at thewafflebusstop.com. You can catch us on Facebook and on Instagram, or just come down and see us at one of our shops in New Glasgow, 209 Provost or 18 College Street here in Antigonish, or look out for the bus on the road wherever at your local events. Yeah, that's really about it.
Brother.
Yeah.
Man.
Thank you so much.
Oh, no. Thank you
so much.
And I'd like to thank everyone for listening. Everyone, this is interview number 1. I am Janai Sampson. This is Janai Sampson Live. And peace, everybody. Take care.